Everybody, welcome to the beautiful Opera Club. We're up in the Turner Family Lounge right now. Hope you enjoyed our webinar that we just presented. And a few of you, sorry, we're kind of new at this live thing, so forgive us for that. That went to one of our other videos, I think. Anyway, so we're in the lovely Turner Family Lounge, and we have gotten a few questions from you all during the webinar. And if you have more, please post them, and we'll answer them as they come up on our page. But the first question that we have is for Mike Ortiz. If one capability could be added to this SFO stage, what would you want that to be and why?
All right. Well, in addition to the SFO stage, let's see, did it zoom right? Mm-hmm. We're learning technology. I think if I was going to make an addition to the Santa Fe Opera stage, it would probably be to replace and automate the upstage SFO doors. Just from the amount of, I want to say headache. I would say the amount of time we use them, it might be a worthwhile upgrade.
Great.
Thanks.
I also have another question for Mike. We talked a lot about the storms and lightning and those kinds of things during our webinar. And one of the questions that was posed to us was, given the concern about lightning, did that make a difference in design and construction of the set for the Golden Cockerel?
Actually, for Golden Cockerel, I think a lot of our choices in terms of how we went about building that set were driven by aesthetics. That being said, for being an all-steel set, our bigger concern was changeover in the afternoon during the monsoon season. And we sort of accounted for that in that all the steel pieces are sitting on top of carpet, on top of plywood, which is then sitting on a steel frame on rubber wheels. So in a way, that set was pretty insulated from the ground, so it wasn't necessarily a great pathway for electricity to follow.
Great. Mike, you're getting good with that remote control there.
I am.
Missy, question for you. When you think back on all of the costumes you've built, which one stands out as your most ingenious solution to a difficult problem?
Well, gosh, there's so many. I can't think of one in particular. I can think of examples of different things. In general, I think the most ingenious things that have happened have been with rigging fast changes. And over time, sorry, my lightning bolt keeps moving. Over time, that's changed the way that we do it. First, it was like snaps because they were fast out. Then Velcro was invented. And now we use magnets, and the magnets are really clever. Those of you that may have seen some stuff where a costume can go down a trap door. Fast changes can be accomplished on stage really easily, and especially when you're having to have fast changes of so many people, like the fast change in Romeo at the beginning of Romeo and Juliet, when they had to get out of their black morning coats and be all dressed in white, and that was accomplished. That had to happen in less than 3 measures of music. So those kinds of things I think are really clever, that the materials and technology have helped us to get better at doing that. The drapers are brilliant, and they can, create something with huge volume, and yet it weighs almost nothing. So I would say that's pretty much the fact. It's like that world is where the cleverness really shows up.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the Candide quick change that we had to do and what you did to help facilitate that quick change?
Oh gosh, which quick change was that?
The one with the men's chorus where they came off and literally turned around and went back on. Was it Candide?
Yes, it was Candide. And that was magnets.
Great.
In addition to having to do that really, really fast, if it has to be a vista, meaning it's on stage and in the view of the audience, you have to be clever about where you put the magnets because they'll stick to the wrong one if you're not really good at that. But the other thing that happens that isn't necessarily the construction is what happens backstage when you got a lot of dressers, and stage management can speak to that. When you're having to change an entire chorus in the wings, and all of the people that it takes. And sometimes that's like a 30-second. It doesn't happen really often in opera. That's more like in theater, but sometimes it's 30 seconds, 45 seconds. And it takes a lot of people, and it takes really clever engineering of those clothes to be able to get them off quickly and then walk right on stage, because you want them to be able to take a breath because they're going to start singing again. So you want them to be able to, have some peace.
Or sometimes singing backstage as they're being changed, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. That's always frightening. You don't want to poke them with a pin.
That's right. Or a bobby pin. Randy, how did things work out with the black goo in Cozy? What worked well from your perspectives and what did not work well?
The goo did come out of almost everything, but the interesting thing is that the most challenging removal was the floor, was the deck. It got in the cracks, and the more we did it, the more black got in the cracks. And so we ended up having to basically scrub the deck and get the black out of the corners. And you couldn't really see it at the scene at the interval, but when the lights came up, you could see the goo in the cracks. We had that goo made for us by the same company that made the stage blood for Harry Potter movies. And they came up with the color. And then we had to tweak it a little, and they continued to tweak it and send us samples of it. And the original, it came from London originally, but it did come out of the clothing. It went into the pit one night because the artists actually lifted the pouches out of their jacket, and when they went to break the goo bags, it squirted out into the pit. And so that was one of the things that went wrong, but we got that solved, and that was involved in the blocking and changing a little bit so they would know not to ever pull their hands out of their pockets, which were lined with plastic to hold the goo. The other thing was the challenge was they had to roll down the deck, and a couple times in tech, the bags rolled out of the costume, and they, of course, rolled onto it. That never happened in the show that I know, but that goo was a challenge right up into the end. But it looks really great, and they got really good at getting covered in the goo.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that you did was we tested a bunch of different fabrics.
That's right.
Like different fibers, silk, wool, polyester, nylon, to see what it would or wouldn't work on, so that I would know what clothes I had to order or change in order to get it back out of the.
And we do that same process for blood, stage blood. We go through all the fabrics with costumes, and sometimes even the deck. We have to do it with the deck as well. There was Rigoletto that started to stain the floor, and butterfly as well.
Stain the floor for Zalame.
And Zalame, that's right. So we do all those tests ahead of time, so we know what to do during the show or how much removal we'll have to do.
Excellent. This question's kind of timely because we were just talking about a bat that we have that's been visiting us lately, backstage. I'm not sure if Mike wants to answer this question or if whoever wants to chime in on this. But the question is, how do you cope with insects and birds during performances? Who wants to address that? Anyone? I mean, there's not a lot you can do, really.
No.
It's Mother Nature at its finest, right?
Yeah.
We've done some sonar things.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
There's
Sonar, is
a
that right?
sonar thing up in the roof that's supposed to scare the birds away. Sometimes it works. I think some of you have probably noticed the plastic owls that are up in the house. Those have moderate success. Honestly, I feel like the thing that we've had around that's done the best at keeping away birds and insects is when the real owl is still on the roof.
Right,
Because if the owl's around, nothing wants to get near it.
right.
You get the alpha predator in the roof and things stay away.
Right.
But it's kind of entertaining though, especially during dress rehearsals when we're in the house and those finches, the house finches,
Yeah.
and people start singing and the orchestra starts playing and they just pitch right in.
Yep, they do.
Sure do.
Sing and sing. I notice it more in the dress rehearsals than when there's an audience. I wonder if the number of people
during the day and during rehearsals,
Yeah, staging
Yeah.
rehearsals
they
for sure.
they totally act and react to what's going on. And even in the Songs from Santa Fe series, I think it was when Bob was playing that one evening when we were here for Tristan, they were chirping right along with it. They were loving it. They were loving it. So birds, they come and go. Bats can be an issue just because they like to dive bomb. Insects, there's occasional hatchings, and there's not really much we can do about it. Stuff in the house, we obviously try to control, and if there's nests and that kind of thing, we try to carefully address that. But I think, like Missy said, it kind of adds to, we're out in the middle of nature,
Yeah.
so
It's kind of neat.
yeah. And when they sing is really
Yeah, that's always my favorite.
Yeah.
When they're chirping along.
good along with it.
But I wonder if the audience, just the number of people, kind of quiet them down. Well, also because when it gets dark, they do.
Yeah.
But during dress rehearsals, there's not so many people. Maybe I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Right.
Tracy, do you remember the Bohème where the mice came out on the Act 1?
Oh yeah.
They came out of the set in Act 1, which looked great on the set, but they just ran out of the set and ran off the floor and went off stage.
I was
appropriate for
also
Bohème.
just thinking about the skunk that was stuck
Uh-huh.
under a unit. It happened during Rick's Progress, and it happened one other show too. I can't think what the other one was.
2 summers ago, there was one that fell in the B-lift.
Oh yeah, there was one in the B lift too. But there was one that was stuck under the unit of Rick's Progress, and we were trying to get it to stage and trying to get the skunk out, and eventually it happened. But yeah, we have mountain lions, we have bears occasionally up here. We're really
Bobcats.
what?
Bobcats.
Bobcats that visit us. So it's kind of part of the whole picture, I think, up here.
Yeah.
Well, great. This is a question for everyone. So you might have to ponder it for a moment. Any memorable director's design ideas that had to be scrapped? Look at they're all laughing. Yeah.
Keep the mask on while I ponder that.
Keep the mask on. I mean,
Let
one
me get
thing.
my list.
One thing, just so I think we've probably talked about this before during this event, but the directors and designers come to us about 2 years out, year and a half out, and do an initial presentation to all the department heads and the artistic. And so at that point, we are given the opportunity to say, this will work, this won't work, this isn't in budget, this is not in budget. They come back to us at least twice more after that before we get the final design, right?
Yeah.
And so that type of thing, we have not necessarily scrapped things, but it's negotiation on things, right? Directors' ideas during rehearsals sometimes get scrapped. Or we can't do the change, or we can't,
Right.
right? or there's a prop that might not, great ideas, but just not feasible build wise. Can you think of anything in particular, Randy?
I'm thinking of live flame.
Live flame?
Is one of our most challenging moments that we've had to scrap at different times because of the wind, and having the queue actually work if they need the light queue. For us, that's been the one that's most either scrapped or we've changed the concept or idea.
There's times when there's been requests for live horses to be on stage more than once. That definitely got scrapped pretty quickly.
Yeah.
There was one show where they wanted the horse to come up on the B lift, which is our scenic lift, for those of you that don't know what the B lift is. And the artist was supposed to write down the stage on it.
Yeah.
Great ideas.
Great ideas.
Yeah.
And we actually had somebody in town that could have provided that horse at $5,000 per performance.
Yep.
I mean, for us, I won't pinpoint a specific show, but for us, it's always about cutting back the expectations as it pertains to automation. I feel like preliminary designs, people have really good ideas and cool concepts, and then you go to put a price tag to what those kinds of ideas really cost, and it's where you have to pare things down. Or like we did the other day when we met about the scene to scene, where it's like, I like your idea, but you just can't get 25 people out of a 20-inch hole in 45 seconds. It's just not feasible.
That's true. So there's a lot of give and take, I think, as we're talking about the design process. And sometimes the directors will come up with ideas like, what if couldn't we? And we can shut them down pretty quickly, depending, just because, we have to think about manpower, repertory, how does it affect the other shows? Budget is a big one, right? Yeah. Budget's usually a big one. Missy deals with, the budget's great. We could have 32, be awesome to have 32 supers, but, the budget is what it is, right?
It is.
So,
and a lot of that stuff is not even just us, but it's like, where are they going to be able to put on their costumes? Where is the space to do that? Yep. Where is the space to have those people in the wings?
Right.
That means more people on your, for wig and makeup. That means a lot more crew. That means maybe more housing. That means, it's like there's a lot of consequence to any of those decisions. And sometimes, as you guys know, you'll get a note that just from rehearsal, it's like it wasn't involved in the original plan, but wouldn't it be great, out of the rehearsal, it's like, wouldn't it be great? You're like,
yes, it would
be great. That would be so great.
Right.
What's funny though is generally it does start that way. Wouldn't it be great? And usually it's about an octave higher than their speaking voice. Wouldn't it be great if?
It's true.
Right.
And you cue right in.
Yeah, really. And the dogs begin to howl.
I remember when we did Coronation of Popeye, they wanted to triple the chorus at the end. And what they did is they built a costume with two heads that went on the shoulder. And the chorus wore this costume that looked like two other people.
Oh, cool.
And they came up the backstage, and it was very effective. That was a long time ago, and they were all like skulls, and it was very effective. And that was so that they could make that massive entrance.
Of people.
And that was one of the ways they solved that.
Yeah, clever.
I have to look those pictures up.
We are clever people.
We are.
This is sort of a question for whoever wants to chime in. What are your opinions and reaction to modern projections? How does that affect, and also, as another question, how does that affect your work? You want to start, Mike?
Yeah, sure. I think the more projection stuff we do here, I think the design and the intent behind it has been a lot more clever. I think when well used and executed, I think it's a powerful tool, and it does have its own inherent costs, but certainly in terms of scenery, it helps reduce the number of scene shifts that we have to do, the amount of scenery that we have to build. It gives us more flexibility to create new and exciting spaces without having to invest a lot of infrastructure and manpower in helping to create those spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, Mike will probably agree, is the surfaces then are very important, what the surface is.
Yeah.
Like in Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a real big consideration if there's going to be projections, and that's all designed into the early, actually.
Yeah. Well, and it's over time, it's really improved.
Yeah.
Like the early projections from,
Even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but like I think the earliest projections work I ever worked on was like in 94, 96, somewhere like that. And now it's like the projections are much more sophisticated. The equipment is so much more sophisticated. And for us, it has more to do with the planning of the fabric and what's going to happen when the projection hits it. Is it going to change the color palette? It's still a lighting issue, but it's right. I mean, now there are shows where they use the costume as a projection surface.
Right.
So there's a lot of interesting stuff that's happening.
Yeah,
And now it's a designed element now. I mean, there's a projection designer.
Yeah.
And that's getting more prominent in theater as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever seen where a bad projection, but it changes the whole piece in the end.
Yeah.
If it's not well, brought forward well. And I won't say any I won't say
Not
any.
here.
Not here.
But
So
I mean,
raise the hand.
bad projections can cheapen a production.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Or it draws your attention
Yeah, it's a
away from,
distraction.
especially in opera.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can draw away from the singer. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there's a real finesse to it.
And the mood completely, like
Changes.
wreck the mood or whatever.
Mhm.
But they are really cool.
And we have our projection category, I guess, for lack of a better word, has really increased over the years. And our equipment, we've gotten more updated equipment. And like for 13th Child last year, Steve Jobs is probably the first one that was really involved in. Cold Mountain, right? See, they all run together for me.
And the double bill was.
The double bill, we did
Jobs
some.
was really important because
Which one?
Jobs, because it had all of those rotating
Well, it had the black tracks.
Yeah.
surfaces and stuff that
Which
made
was
it-
the system that we used for that.
yeah
That
was
would
really
follow,
cool.
that tracked, hence the name, all of the boxes. That was pretty incredible. That first tech was pretty amazing when we saw that.
It was. That was the first dress rehearsal that I went to where the invited audience, just straight people who stood up and
Yep.
applauded
Yep, there was this.
when that
animation
happened, all
for
that
it.
happened.
Yep.
It was amazing.
It was pretty cool.
And in Cold Mountain too, a lot of the projections became sort of the lighting cue too,
Yeah.
where they changed the entire set with the projection and color, and I thought that was pretty amazing actually.
Right. Great. Any more? Any more questions, anybody? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Of course, now the wind is hitting. So that's probably pretty good timing. We just wanted to thank you for joining us today. We're really sad that we weren't able to do it in person. And hopefully next year we will be in person. Fingers crossed, everybody, right? So if there's at any point you guys have any other questions or you think of anything, you can certainly shoot me an email, shoot Chelsea an email. Chelsea's been manning the computer over here, handing me the questions for those of you that saw her sneak in and out. So thank you, Chelsea, for being our moderator, not mediator, moderator. So thank you very much for joining us today, and we hope you're all staying safe and well.
And thank you for engaging us.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks.